before betrayal ever shows its face. It leaves a trail. You know, people talk about cheating like it's some lightning strike. Out of nowhere, sudden, impossible to predict. But that's not how it happens. Not in real life. In real life, it's slower. It's quieter. It slips in like smoke through a cracked window, almost invisible at first. But it's already in the air you're breathing. By the time you notice it's in your lungs, it's become part of your everyday. And here's the truth that most men never hear until it's too late. When a woman cheats. And I'm not just talking about the physical act. She doesn't do it cleanly. She leaves behind traces. Not the kind you can take to court, but emotional fingerprints, little shifts in her habits, her energy, her presence. If you're paying attention, you can see them. If you're honest with yourself, you can feel them. The problem is, most men don't want to feel them. We tell ourselves it's stress. It's just a phase. It's work. It's nothing. We trade our intuition for the comfort of denial, and we pay for it later. A Stoic man, though, he moves differently. He's not paranoid, and he doesn't spy. He doesn't waste his peace chasing shadows, but he observes. He sees patterns, because patterns don't lie. And when you know how to read them, they'll tell you the truth long before the confession ever comes. It's not about catching someone in the act that's just theater. It's about recognizing when the energy has shifted, when the warmth has cooled, when the connection you once had is being rationed out to you in smaller and smaller doses. If you've ever felt that ache in your gut, that tightness in your chest, that quiet voice saying something's off, don't rush to dismiss it. That's not insecurity. That's awareness. And ignoring it won't make it go away. In this conversation, I'm going to share with you the signs. The real signs that a woman has already begun to step away from you, whether she admits it or not. Not so you can become a detective, but so you can become a man who sees clearly, a man who doesn't cling to illusions, who values his dignity more than his comfort. If this is your first time here, welcome to Stoic Outlook, where we speak truth without fear. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video, because today's lesson might just protect your peace, your dignity, and the very core of who you are. Because in the end, clarity isn't pain. Clarity is freedom. And if you can learn to recognize the smoke before it becomes a fire, you won't just save yourself from betrayal, you'll save yourself from losing who you are in the process. Sign 1. The shared future quietly disappears. It doesn't happen with a fight. There's no big announcement, no door slammed, no dramatic speech about needing to move on. It happens in the smallest of ways, in the words she chooses and the ones she stops using. One day, without even realizing it, you hear less of, "when we," and "we will." Those little seeds you once planted together, the trips you were going to take, the home you were going to build, the life you were going to grow into, they're no longer in the conversation. Instead, it's, "I'm thinking of moving. I will probably travel. I've been looking into," and you'll notice, you're no longer part of the sentence. She hasn't erased you in a way you can point to. She hasn't said you're not in her plans. She's just quietly rewritten the story and left your name out. And this is where most men make a dangerous mistake. They think it's nothing. They tell themselves she's just being independent, that it's good for her to have her own goals. And yes, independence is healthy. But erasing someone from your imagined future is not independence. It's emotional departure. A Stoic man knows people rehearse their exits long before they walk out the door. They start in the mind, then the heart, then the body. By the time you see the suitcase, the leaving happened months ago. So if her language no longer includes you, if you've gone from a partner in her dreams to a guest in her present, That's not an accident. That's a signal. And the Stoic response is not to beg her to put you back into her sentences. It's to ask yourself why you're holding on to someone who has already let go. Sign 2. Her body stays, but the intimacy doesn't. You can still feel the mattress dip when she lies beside you. You can still hear her breathing in the dark. From the outside, nothing's changed. You're still in the same bed, still under the same roof. But you know better. The warmth is gone. The quiet comfort that used to wrap around you at night has vanished. Now, there's a distance you can't measure in inches, only in heartbeats. Some nights, she turns away without a word. Other nights, she reaches for you, but it feels different. Too intense, too sudden, like she's trying to prove something or hide something. You can't tell which is worse, the silence that makes you feel unwanted, or the closeness that feels artificial. Here's what most men don't want to admit when a woman is giving her emotional or physical intimacy to someone else. She can't give it to you in the same way. Sometimes it disappears. Sometimes it mutates, but it never stays the same. Real intimacy isn't about frequency. It's not about how many times you touch her. It's about whether she's really there when you do. When the love is gone, you can feel it in your bones. You can sense it in the way she exhales after your kiss, as if she's relieved it's over. It's like kissing a ghost. The body is present, but the soul is somewhere else. A Stoic man doesn't ignore that shift. He doesn't lie to himself just to keep the peace. He understands that you cannot share your body with someone whose spirit is already gone. And pretending it's the same as it once was, that's not protecting the relationship. That's betraying your own intuition. So when you feel the connection fading in the dark, don't rush to turn on the light and demand answers. Sit with the truth you already know, because the man who values his own dignity never begs for affection that's no longer freely given. Sign 3. Her emotional energy shifts around other men. Sometimes the truth doesn't show up in arguments. It shows up in the way she lights up when someone else walks into the room. Pay attention not with suspicion, but with clarity. When another man is around, does her smile seem more alive? Do her eyes brighten in a way you haven't seen in weeks? Does her voice soften, her posture open, her laughter come more easily? These are not small things. They are signals. Because energy is never random, it flows toward what the heart is drawn to. And if the spark that once burned for you now flickers for someone else, it's not an accident. It's a shift. Now understand this, a Stoic man doesn't get lost in jealousy. He doesn't start shadowing her steps or scrolling through her phone at night. That's not strength, that's desperation. But he does notice where her attention drifts and where her warmth goes when it leaves his side. People can fake words, but they can't fake energy. You feel it when you are no longer the sun. She turns toward, but just a lamp in the corner, useful, but no longer her source of light. When this happens, you have two choices. Ignore it and hope it changes, or accept that her soul may already be somewhere you can't follow. A man grounded in reason chooses acceptance over illusion, not because it's easy, but because it's honest. And in Stoicism, honesty with yourself is the foundation of peace. Sign 4. She reduces personal sharing. There was a time when you knew everything, not because you pried, but because she wanted to tell you. The little details, the funny moments, the random thoughts that didn't matter to anyone else, they all found their way to you. You knew what she had for lunch, the weird dream she had the night before, the co-worker who annoyed her. You didn't just share a life together. You shared the in-between moments that made you feel connected. But now, Something's changed. She still talks, but not in the same way. The stories are shorter, safer. It's not the whole picture anymore, just the cropped, polished version she wants you to see. You realize you're no longer in the loop about the small things, and you're starting to wonder what else you're not in the loop about. And here's the thing. This isn't about privacy. Privacy is healthy. We all need space to be our own person. But what you're seeing here isn't privacy. It's concealment. And concealment always has a reason. And that reason is rarely good. It might start with something small, a forgotten detail, a conversation she didn't think to mention. Then it becomes a habit. Entire parts of her day, her thoughts, her feelings, locked away. And you find yourself standing at the door of her inner world, realizing you don't have the key anymore. A Stoic man pays attention to these changes not because he's paranoid, but because he understands contrast. The contrast between who she was when she was open and who she's becoming when she's guarded. If a person values peace, they don't plant seeds of suspicion. If a person values trust, they don't quietly erase access you once had without explanation. Most men try to explain it away. She's just tired, or she's been busy. And maybe that's true, for a while. But when the openness fades and never comes back, that's not fatigue, that's distance. And distance always starts in the heart before it shows up in the body. Here's what you need to remember. A relationship is built in the small exchanges, not just the grand gestures. When those small exchanges vanish, the foundation starts to crack. And if you keep pretending you don't see the cracks, one day you'll find the whole structure collapsed, and you'll be left wondering when it all began. The Stoic response: you don't demand the key back. You don't force your way in. You simply recognize the truth. If she's locking you out, she's already letting someone or something else in. And the man who values his own dignity never fights for access to a space where he's no longer welcome. Sign 5. Small disagreements turn into battles. It starts so small you almost miss it. A late text reply turns into, "You don't care." A single unwashed dish becomes, "You never listen." The words are sharper now, heavier than the moment deserves. You replay the conversations in your head, trying to figure out what you missed. You apologize for things you don't fully understand. And before you know it, you're walking on eggshells in your own home. Not because you've done something terrible, but because the rules have changed without you knowing. Here's the truth most men avoid. These fights aren't about the dish. They're not about the text. They're not even about your tone of voice. They're about distance. And sometimes, distance wears the mask of conflict. When a woman is carrying guilt or preparing to leave, she often needs to create space. And one of the fastest ways to create that space is through arguments. If she can convince herself that you're the problem, then she's not the villain. If she can tell herself that you're cold, inattentive, or too much, then stepping away doesn't feel like betrayal. It feels like self-care. And here's where it gets dangerous. She doesn't just convince herself. She tries to convince you. If you start believing her version of you, the one who's always failing, always making her unhappy, you'll spend all your time trying to fix what was never truly broken. You'll start shrinking, playing defense in a game you never agreed to play. A Stoic man doesn't do that. He sees the pattern for what it is. Camouflage. These sudden, exaggerated conflicts aren't invitations to deeper communication. They're a smokescreen, a way to deflect attention from her own choices. When you recognize this, you stop trying to win the argument. You realize the argument itself is the trap. Because you can't win when the goalposts keep moving, and you can't fix what isn't really the issue. The Stoic response is simple. Observe, detach, and protect your peace. Not by being cold or cruel, but by refusing to get pulled into a war you didn't start. You don't fight to defend your honor against a story someone's already decided to believe. You keep your energy for the battles that matter, the ones inside yourself, where your dignity and self-respect are decided. Remember this. You're not here to be the villain in someone else's redemption story. If she's already painted you that way, the healthiest thing you can do is put down the brush she's been using and walk away. Sign 6. Normal starts to feel like pretending. From the outside, everything looks the same. She still says good morning. She still gives you a smile when you walk into the room. If you ask how she's doing, she still answers, "I'm fine." But you can feel it. It's all theater now. The smile. It doesn't reach her eyes anymore. The words feel like a script, not a truth. There's a hollowness there, not loud, not obvious, but constant like a low hum in the background that never stops. And this is where many men get confused. They think, well, she's still here, isn't she? She still talks to me, still goes through the motions. Yes, but motions without meaning aren't connection. They're performance. You see, real presence isn't about standing in the same room. It's about your spirit being in the same place, when her spirit has already drifted somewhere else to another man, another life, another dream. The version of her standing in front of you is just maintenance, keeping things normal enough so you won't ask too many questions. A Stoic man doesn't confuse performance with truth. He notices the subtle changes, the way her laughter feels rehearsed, the way conversations skim the surface, the way her touch feels polite instead of passionate. He understands that this kind of normal isn't peace, it's pretense. And here's the hard part. Pretending takes energy. If she's putting that energy into keeping up appearances with you, it means she's already investing her real self somewhere else. Because love, when it's genuine, doesn't have to be performed. It flows. Most men cling to the surface signs. They tell themselves, at least she's still talking to me. At least she's still here. But the truth, she left the moment her affection became rationed, the moment her joy became a mask. A Stoic man doesn't beg for the mask to smile wider. He doesn't ask the actor to keep playing the part. He chooses to see the absence for what it is and respects himself enough to respond to the truth, not the illusion. Because here's the reality: when normal starts to feel fake, it's your intuition telling you something real is missing. And ignoring that is like pretending smoke isn't a sign of fire. So if her eyes have stopped meeting yours, if her words no longer carry the weight they used to, and if her smile feels like a stranger's, don't wait for the curtain to fall. Step out of the performance and reclaim a life where connection is real and presence is mutual. Sign 7. The subtle withdrawal of investment. It's rarely the big things that tell you the truth. More often, it's the absence of the small things. The little gestures that once made you feel seen, valued, and connected. Once upon a time, she'd send you a quick message in the middle of the day, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. A simple thinking of you. A playful picture, a moment she wanted to share only with you. Her hand would brush against yours as you passed in the kitchen, or she'd squeeze your shoulder when she walked by. These were tiny moments, but they carried weight. They told you, I'm here, I care, you matter. But now, those moments are fewer. The spontaneous check-ins are gone. The small touches vanish. The thoughtful gestures feel like they've been crossed off a list instead of offered from the heart. And here's what a Stoic man understands. Affection, like attention, is a currency. When it's abundant, it flows freely without calculation. When it starts to be rationed, it's usually because it's being spent somewhere else. This kind of withdrawal is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. She may not even realize she's doing it. But you notice. You feel it in the way the days pass without a single unprompted, "I love you." You feel it when the warmth you once received without asking now has to be earned. And even then, it feels different. The mistake many men make here is trying to work harder to win it back. They double down on effort, hoping she'll notice. But here's the reality. If she's already decided to divert her energy, you can't pull it back by pouring in more of yours. Love isn't a tug of war. When someone has let go of the rope, all you're doing is pulling against air. A Stoic man doesn't fight for scraps of attention. He doesn't beg for crumbs when he once had the feast. He watches the pattern, accepts it for what it is, and makes his choice based on reality, not wishful thinking. Because the quiet withdrawal of investment is often the first chapter of a much bigger exit. By the time you notice the absence of the little things she's already been training herself to live without giving them to you. And if you stay pretending you don't feel the difference, you're not preserving the relationship. You're simply teaching yourself to live on less than you deserve. So when the gestures fade, when the warmth is no longer offered freely, don't just count the days since the last one. Count the cost of staying in a space where love has become conditional. And remember, the man who values his dignity never waits for the moment he's completely forgotten to finally walk away. The truth is, cheating rarely begins in the bedroom. It begins in the slow, quiet erosion of connection, in the shift of her language, the cooling of her touch, the places where her energy no longer flows toward you. It's in the missing details. She used to share the arguments that don't make sense, the smile that no longer reaches her eyes, the small gestures that quietly vanish. Each sign on its own might seem harmless, but together they form a pattern that tells you she's already begun her exit, whether she admits it or not. A Stoic man doesn't ignore these signs. He doesn't cling to illusions just to avoid discomfort. He accepts what is, as even when it's painful, because he understands that living in truth, no matter how hard, is better than living in a comfortable lie. The goal here isn't to turn you into a detective, to have you scanning every word or movement with suspicion. The goal is to help you see clearly, to trust your own awareness, and to act in a way that protects your peace and your dignity. Because once you start sacrificing your self-respect just to keep someone close, you've already lost more than the relationship you've lost yourself. And no relationship is worth that price. So if you see these patterns, pause, breathe, step back, and decide not out of fear or anger, but from a place of strength. Is this the kind of connection I want to build my life around? Clarity isn't pain. Clarity is freedom. And the sooner you choose truth over illusion, the sooner you can reclaim your own life, your own worth, and your own peace. If this message resonated with you, if it cleared some of the fog you've been pretending isn't there, then I invite you to take the next step. Subscribe to Stoic Outlook for deeper, unfiltered conversations about relationships, self-mastery, and living with purpose. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Because here, we don't chase shadows. We sharpen minds, we strengthen hearts, and we walk through life not with fear, but with the unshakable calm of a man who sees clearly.